2020, an empire in its zenith. The tendrils of the American experiment extend across the Atlantic and Pacific, gripping tightly in its clutches the lives of hundreds of millions of people. Taiwan, a sole island of Western influence, sits protected beneath the adamantium armor of American avarice. NATO in the east, an alliance of American might and European money, an alliance with only one true military power within it, and a bunch of small supportive sycophants pining for old glories long left in their past. America has disarmed its gravest enemies in a war nearly a century before. Germany and Japan were defanged, turned into blossoming islands of economic development, reliant on American ships and arms to maintain security against their shared threats. The fall of the Warsaw Pact in 1991 led to NATO expanding greatly eastwards, further solidifying American influence over the continent, isolating Russia despite their wishes to join NATO under Yeltsin. By the mid-2000s, China had taken their place as America's main adversary on the world stage, but not out of conflicting ideology, but by conflicting markets. Maoism had died in China, replaced by rampant and often predatory state capitalist practices. The Dingist era had arrived before anyone knew it, and by this day, the global economic stranglehold America enjoyed was usurped by a phantom of the Cold War. These market socialists in Asia combined the best pieces of capitalism and collectivism, and used them to dominate world markets and vastly develop their domestic ones. China became a world hub of not just American industry, but industry the world over. Foreign investments not just in heavy industry, but in research. China sits on the cusp of overtaking the old experiment. America is stagnant. The election of Donald Trump in 2016 shows the people boil for change, while the strong leadership of Xi Jinping contrasts him. Both strong leaders, but only one operating with impunity, unable to be fettered in his goals by petty bureaucracy. The American system is failing. The elections grow increasingly turbulent. Political violence is exploding. The Chinese and the Russians, long tired of playing second fiddle on the global stage, watch with devilish smiles. A man in Richmond is killed by police, and the city is overran by protesters. Richmond votes by close majority to abolish its police force, but violent crimes merely continue to climb. Copycat protests consume cities from the west to the east, from the hot swamps of South Florida to the frigid forests of Maine, from the Cascadian expanse to the desert plains of Phoenix. America is burning. Trump runs on a campaign of law and order, but his presidency hardly delivered on its promises the first term. Biden offers a return to normalcy, but normal in the U.S. isn't cutting it. It's not putting food on tables. It's not feeding families. It's putting people in the streets. It is the lack of change, the continued normalcy that plagues America. As 2020 trudges onward, American money in a Chinese lab finally came home for once. COVID-19 landing on the West Coast quickly took root and spread, not just here, globally, like anything American, like blue jeans and hamburgers, spreading to every corner like a plague, infecting the hearts, minds, and in this case, the cells of the people. The Saudi king is slaughtered by this man-made menace, this lab-brewed curse. The House of Saud mourns, but it's no time to mourn. Arabia abolished hereditary rule. Instead, the kings are elected by a council of the House of Saud. While one man was groomed for the position, various interests conflict. Their differences too great, Arabia fractures. Trump says America has the oil to sustain itself, but the oil barons suffer regardless. OPEC's production tanks as Libya, Iraq, and others face the same instability. As oil prices hike, refined gas does in kind. The crippling pandemic in the States, the deteriorating political scene, and the already collapsed economy, now destroyed by the rise in gas, mean many cannot even get to work. For all the talks of self-sufficiency, America isn't. China has suffered the same hardships, and yet they have survived without this chaos. All around the world, the American people see others, poorer nations, doing far better. They see the European Union succeeding where they have failed. They see Japan withstanding it. Vietnam, people question the system. Tens of millions leave the dichotomy of bipolar American politics. No longer Republican, Democrat, or even Libertarian or Green. Tens of millions turn to the Patriot Front, to the PSL, the RCP, to the DSA, the young and old, veterans, children, the LGBTQ, immigrants. Everyone finds their place. The Chicanos turn to ethnic militancy in South Arizona. Mormons go insular. Militant socialists rally in the West. In California, setting up communes and stockpiling arms, while Governor Newsom fails to quell the movement's anti-police protests, and the Salisbury precinct in San Fran goes up in smoke. Election day comes, and Trump is said to have won. The disorder and panic made his message of order resonate more, and yet the government does not believe him. The Republican establishment deserts him. Romney, McConnell, and others stick with the DNC and Biden. Biden is inaugurated despite various auditors confirming the results. Trump is also inaugurated, however. He is inaugurated in a NORAD control room in Denver. Loyal militiamen and elements of the military defending his so-called rightful reign stand outside. Two governments, one house, and all the walls are made of glass. A dangerous situation has happened underneath them. So used to a political monopoly, nearly half the nation is no longer at their whim. The DNC and the GOP are blindsided by the lack of support. Hundreds of thousands of miles of territory go silent. Regional military governments take command over civilian institutions, but they too lose control of their regions. The South descending into Confederate separatists, black ethno-nationalists, the remnants of state governments, communists, and the enigmatic Atomwaffen, emerging from the swamp like a figure of folklore, like Mothman predicting a disaster with his mere presence. The Northeast consumed by Zionists, anarchists, libertarians, Andrew, I'm just Italian, Cuomo, and Rousseau's Patriot Front. Michigan, the brewing ground for the National Socialist movement, for an enlarged and renewed Huttery for the black gangs of Detroit, and the damned remnants of the state government left out to dry by Washington. The Midwest is lucky to be under Trump's, while Texas is in sheer chaos. Secessionists, Maoists, Nazis, Hispanic nationalists, and a similar tale of these so-called brown berets in Arizona. But the most severe yet, the collapse of Californian authority. Prison gangs like the Aryan Brotherhood, the Hells Angels, mercenaries, militias, the Bloods and the Crips, and sandwiched between the chaos of all of these marauders, the American People's Liberation Army, the saviors of America, real reform for all Americans. Right now, they are a scrappy coalition of anarchists, the Democratic Socialists of America, the Party for Socialism and Liberation under Gloria Riva, and the Jacobins, as they're dubbed, the followers of Caleb Maupin, of Hinkle. Notably, the followers of Bob Avakian, the Revolutionary Communist Party, are not present. America has collapsed under the weight of its own inadequacies, and from the rubble rises the very ideology the oligarchs thought vanquished: communism. There is a specter haunting California, and on its ragtag uniforms is one uniformed patch: APLA. In a decade's time, people will revere this patch. They will spit on the idea of red, white, and blue. They will know the red banner of liberation, the gear and the hammer. They will know the last century has been a lie, sweetly told to keep a rich people richer, while the poor become poorer. America first, and then the world. The revolution begins here. Which side are you on? 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 They say in Merced County there are no neutrals there. You'll either be an activist or an almond millionaire. Every year there is a fire, and I was burned in one. All the water goes to Gulf, and there's oil in the Gulf. Oh, which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? 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 Oh, people, can you stand it? Tell me how you can. Will you be a voting man, or will you take a stand? Which side are you on? 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 From all of you good workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the People's Army will send them back to hell. We don't need your almonds, no, we don't need your gold. We don't need another billionaire from Microsoft. Which side are you on? 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 The APLA is, as I already mentioned, a ragtag of four main factions: the DSA, PSL, Jacobins, and the anarchists, all of whom are diametrically opposed on many elements, from culture, policy, economics, and administration. Some among us would even argue that the Larouchian Jacobites shouldn't even be included in our coalition. It became necessary during the course of the war to determine a time to host the first party congress of the APLA to collectively decide, democratically, how to move forward. The anarchists organized under Professor Mark Bray, a historian with a specialty in radicalism and Spain, which for some reason is not at all surprising and probably correlated for an anarchist. They have an interest in revolutionary violence in pursuit of fast reform and cultural change, to foster a communist society and do their best to remove any element of the state. The Black Bloc must see to it that revolutionary violence is the guiding principle of the youth. But Professor Bray commands a very small part of the largely moderate left. The DSA under Julius Salazar, which once held perhaps the largest single share of support, fell to the wayside under the combined rise of the PSL and the Jacobins. The Jacobins absorbed many disaffected Republicans. With the media now under APLA control, Caleb can appeal to the Christians, to the socially conservative men and women of the countryside. Meanwhile, Gloria Riva, a child of Hispanic parents and a clear, calm speaker, attracts a broad audience of moderates, minorities, and radicals from the urban centers. In backdoor talks, it becomes clear that Maupin and Riva, though different culturally, have similar philosophies on centralized administrations. With the popular support provided by Riva, the Jacobins work alongside the PSL to create the party state idea. The Democratic Socialists of America and the anarchists protest as the DSA wishes to reform the existing system, and the anarchists do not want one at all. Regardless of their talking, the PSL take the lead of the APLA, and Gloria Riva establishes an American People's Republic along the lines of Marxism-Leninism, with the long-term goal of establishing a single-party state and a dictatorship of the proletariat, modeling the economic and political system off of that of the PRC, who happens to be one of the APLA's main benefactors. Chinese support was instrumental in the early days of the war, and in fact was the reason California was chosen, let alone the large population and economic sustainability of California. Its proximity to the Chinese allows for widespread support. This can, however, hurt our image in the eyes of the people. Chinese guns, but American will, must liberate the nation. With a majority of the American People's Congress now unified under the Centralist bloc, Mark Bray and his anarchists begin a terror campaign. Mass protests, strikes, rioting, they threaten to upend the revolution before it begins. Leftist infighting cannot consume our nation. With the support of Jacobins, the strikes are crushed, and Mark Bray's attempts at forcing Riva to coalesce with him have failed. But this doesn't mean all infighting is done. Over the course of the war, the Jacobin-aligned John Brown Brigade and the anarchist Catgirl Brigade got into a firefight. One of the most prolific, but not the only case of militia infighting. Alongside the government, one of the first things that had to be centralized was the military. Finishing the centralization that began a few weeks into the revolution, our military was revitalized just in time to hear that Bob Avakian's RCP had seized control over Oregon and Washington. We had hopes for negotiations for a union, but the neo-Maoist, or as they say, New Synthesis-aligned RCP have a near cult following for their old chairman. We respect the RCP for their long contributions to American protests, but the cult must end. If Bob won't work with us, Bob can retire at the end of a bayonet. Moving into the Cascadian region isn't exactly child's play. Northern California and Southern Oregon are rather underdeveloped regions. The infrastructure has something to be desired. Feeding a large army marching up north or into the south is difficult. And as such, the initial phase of the Oregon offensive is the most important. With Avakian's forces defeated, the APLA was the only significant left force remaining. Both a sad but comforting truth. They had lost in Texas, New England, and now all of the American left was in our hands. We had a united front, while the rest of America was still in pieces. The Pacific Coast became the first place where normal life could really return, but we could not slow down. The APLA had to leverage itself once more in preparation for the march to Washington. Securing Idaho, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico through a series of operations would put us into direct contact with the Federalists and Abbott's Texas. But to secure it, the APLA would need to trudge through a sea of Nazi gangs, federal military remnants, Federalist state remnants, and the Mormon fundamentalist kingdom of Zion, whose mad reign rallied the people of Utah under Warren Jeffs. Though besides the Mormons, they were all enemies the APLA had tested themselves against before. All we have to do is walk in and press revolution's frontier east yet further. Oh yeah, by the way, during this war, Vosh got himself fucked to death by a horse. Mexico, too, has seen itself consumed by cartels, a problem we'll have to take care of later. Finally, we had reached a position where we could relax. Enough population and resources were under our control to be able to establish a real economy and industrial base. A widespread motorization of the army was declared by Riva on the recommendation of General Preisner, hero of California. And after a grand effort by the workers, it was done. The APLA was expanded to 1 million soldiers. Their motorized formations trained, poised, ready to storm across the Midwest and into Texas. But time still needed to be bought. The APLA's politics and economics had not kept up with the speed of army reforms, and so reformation and progression in both respects was prioritized. For the next year, while Trump, Biden, and the Patriot Front-led nationalist coalition fought, the APLA looked inwards to streamline its politics and ensure that when they reached Washington, they were ready to take control of the nation and provide. Now, we just needed to get there. But with the most developed armed force on the American continent, it would be no challenge. The Federalists in Washington were dying. Trump was weakened. It was our time to move. Like a righteous hammer, the fires of reaction and revolution surround the old guard. They will be crushed today, and then we will quell the fires of reaction. America was secured. The many hundreds of thousands of unprofessional militiamen created a core of unemployed workers, many of whom re-enlisted, having very little direction in their lives. These youths grew up in a period where the world was nothing to them. They were waiting for a spark to burn it all down, and now that they had, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of American youth only knew how to hold a spark. Tens of thousands volunteered to aid the Portuguese and Spanish communists in their struggles against the forces of reaction and liberalism. The American army was reformed, the motorized turned into mechanized, jets put into mass production. Before all this, the PSL once campaigned for disarmament, but the cartels in Mexico opened a door for Riva she had not considered until she looked at the invasion plans. She is a Hispanic. She is an American. She can speak English as well as she can Spanish. From Alaska to the tip of Chile, English, Spanish, and Portuguese are the main languages which separate a billion souls. Gloria Riva had been a close friend of Castro, visiting Cuba on many occasions, corresponding. With her leadership over America, a bright future laid ahead for the Bolivarian Venezuelans, Communist Cuba, and many other minor communist states in the Americas. The Solidarity Pact was created, unifying the communists of the Americas, and the first order of business to securing a pan-American revolution was to vanquish the last strong bastion of liberal opposition on the continent, Canada, and then to take the fight south to wipe out the decadent, sadist gangs that occupied most of Mexico. And why stop at Mexico? Seize Central America, which had been embroiled in a war for nearly 7 years now. Take the canal, intervene in the Colombian Civil War, take it all, seize and unite a billion souls, and then help the world see the light. As grand a moment of celebration as it was, there was a lot of resistance. The state was further militarized, but special care was taken to assign commanders to regions that spoke languages they understood. But many were simply happy the cartels were gone. gangs, favelas, cartels, all of it disappeared under a wave of precision strikes and a wave of mechanized. Much of the United States needed to be rebuilt, but years of rebuilding had already taken place in the rich western U.S. Riva's refusal to accept America's debt aided greatly in the nation's economic rebuilding, but made many, including China, angry. That anger became fear when Riva had completed her campaign in just under a year, seizing the moment to remove the cult of capital from the Western Hemisphere once and for all. Many wonder how this can be possible, but California's economic output was larger than France's before the war, and under the direction of the Central Development Bureau, it has continued to surpass most single nations. And so with California as the economic heart, the Union of American Council Republics stood truly American, every kind, Latin, African, Native, and white. The Hispanic nature of the new USCR meant that when a neoliberal European Union in a revanchist fury invaded communist Iberia after their loss to Medvedev's Russia, there were calls from the Brazilian and Spanish Americans by the millions to aid their Portuguese and Spanish brothers. Riva worried about the possibility of a nuclear exchange or a Russian invasion, but decided that communism would never again have this chance. She was never a warlike person, but she had literally dodged bullets, shells, knives. She was a subject of over 12 assassination attempts. She was a survivor now, a leader of a war-torn nation for 6 years of constant war. And she, if she wasn't already, is truly a hardline communist. She plans to bring the revolution all the way to Berlin and then take down the Russians. She thinks to herself, in a funny way, she once supported Russia's actions, and now here she was fantasizing about the hammer and sickle over Moscow once more. 1 million men flooded into Iberia, and the grand campaign began to save the West from capitalism, to liberate Marx's home, to vanquish the last titans of reaction. Together with China, America will stand on the top of a world painted red, or die trying.
The winds of war in 35. The winds of war in 35. The world turns its head from the rising fascist tide. Not the Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade. The cry from Toronto, from Montreal. The cry from Toronto, from Montreal. Across Canada, unions rally to the call. The Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade. To France, to Spain, cross the Pyrenees. France, to Spain, cross the Pyrenees. Some try by boat and are blown out of the sea. The Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade. English is our tongue, ici on parle français. United here in Spain, no passerelle we say. The Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade. Fighting at Verama and Aragon. Fighting at Verama and Aragon. Before the killing's through, nearly half of them are gone. The Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade. On the battlefields neath the Spanish moon. On the battlefields neath the Spanish moon. Them driving out to heal us, our medic Doc Bethune. The Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade. English is our tongue, ici on parle français. United here in Spain, no passing on we say. The Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade. Survivors sail back to Canadian land. Survivors sail back to Canadian land. Their own government persecutes this brave and loyal band. sing the praise of these worthy volunteers. May their names be remembered over all the years. Long live the Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade. Long live the Mackenzie-Papineau Brigade.
With Europe's armies vanquished, American arms, armor, and aircraft rebuilt the newly propped-up communist governments. President Medvedev pressed the border forward, taking the Balkans, Czechia, Poland. Others joined their cause as well: Turkey, Finland, Serbia, Croatia. Now afraid of the encroaching communists, every last liberal roach on the continent had banded together under the banner of the Collected Security Treaty Organization. All the better to wipe them all out at once. The Germans were given the red button by Riva, told to prepare their forces. The newly established government of Sarah Wagenknecht wasted no time. Within 2 years of her government's establishment, the Solidarity Pact invaded the CSTO. The final struggle was here, the last Great War. And while China fought and slowly won in the East against the PDTO, once Moscow fell, it would be over. All real opposition defeated. World revolution was within our grasp.
Дадим отпор душителям всех пламенных идей, насильникам, грабителям, мучителям людей. Пусть ярость благородная вскипает, как волна, идет война народная, священная война. Не смеют крылья черные над родиной летать, поля ее просторные не смеет враг топтать. Гнилой фашистской нечисти загонит пулю в лоб.
Man, this took me way too
Wingardium
long to record.
Leviosa. Do you
Did I-
think there's a Viagra spell?
A Viagra smell?
Spell, like
Oh.
in Harry Potter.
I mean, if you can move blood around, probably.
Wingardium Leviosa. And he something's going up. Something's levitating. If you know what I mean.
And with the collapse of Russia, it was finally over. A struggle almost 2 centuries in the making. The only shame was that Marx couldn't be alive to see it.
Labor, our mighty republics will ever endure. The great Soviet Union will live through the ages.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the end of another video. If you haven't liked and subscribed already, please do so. What are you doing watching a video this long and not liking and subscribing? Obviously, you want more, my friend. I apologize graciously for missing last week, but life gets in the way sometimes. I hope everybody's having a great day. I had a lot of fun making this one, as I do most of them, but this one especially, I think, was a pretty good one. I feel I'm improving, and I quite enjoy that. Anyway, have a good day, and I hope to see you next week, or maybe sooner. We shall see. Goodbye.